to Business Studies Part 4. Today, this lesson is going to look at factors affecting the choice of the ownership structure of businesses, and then secondly, we're going to have a look at some of the influences on the business environment. There are a number of factors that affect the choice of your ownership structure. For example, whether or not you choose a sole trader partnership or become or incorporate into either a privately owned company or a publicly owned company. The first key factor is obviously the size. As a business grows, it's quite common for its structure to change. Most small businesses start out as a sole trader, often taking on partners to help expand, and then finally becoming a private company to help it expand throughout either nationally or internationally. A second factor affecting is your ownership structure. If you are wanting to expand, quite often it's the most convenient way is to take on investment partners or floating the company. Either of these options may often require a change in the ownership structure of your company. Obviously, a sole trader can't take on partners, nor can a partnership be floated on the stock exchange. They must be incorporated first. Thirdly, finance becomes an issue. It is much easier to gain public finance either by the share market or through venture capitals if you are a corporation. So if you incorporate your company, become a limited liability company and therefore becomes a legal entity on its own, finance organisations are much more willing to invest or to lend you money to expand your business. At this stage, it would be really helpful if you take some time out and complete revision exercise 2.5 from the textbook. Now I want to have a look at some of the influences on the business environment. These are basically typically divided into two areas: internal influences and external influences. Internal influences are things that the business can control. These include things like employees, what products you're selling, what markets you're selling into. External influences are things that are beyond the control of the company, but things that need to be, the company needs to be aware of regardless, including governments or taxation environments or environmental laws. Typically internal things are easily controllable, are the culture and the people. You have the right to decide who you employ in your company or your business, and typically the owners and management are the ones that develop the culture within the company. This means how the company is going to operate, how people are treated, the feel of the organisation, whether people are feel valued or not. A second internal factor, as we said before, you can choose the products and the resources that you use. You can develop your own suppliers to create your products or services, and you can decide what products and services you are going to sell into the market. A brief look at external factors, as we said before, the government and the economy are things that you need to be well aware of, but you have absolutely no control over. Every voter in Australia has some say in the election of the government. One business is not going to change it much one way or the other. Similar to the economy, you have very limited control over the economy. However, you need to be aware of it. If times are going well, it might be wise to take on extra staff to take advantage of the good economic conditions and the expected growth in your business. Conversely, if the economy is not doing so well, many businesses hold off hiring new people in the case that there may be a downturn in the economy, and they would have to then lay them off again at a later date. Other external factors that you have limited control over are technology and social attitudes. You can't control what technology other people are developing. You can only really decide whether you're going to implement it or use it or apply it in your own business. Similarly, you can't really control, within a few other exceptions of companies like Apple, what social attitudes are towards your products or towards the marketplace in general. Most companies are trend followers, not trend setters. However, you need to be aware of what the social attitudes is. The rise in the green movement and environmental concerns has caught many companies by surprise, and they're now trying to play catch up to make sure they get on board with the green movement. There are two external main factors that operate in opposition to each other, and we classify these in terms of economic terms. In a boom period where the economy is doing well and the markets are increasing, they're typically experienced during these periods high employment, much easier for people to find jobs. Often we find when we get to a situation of about 5% unemployed, which economists consider full employment, i.e. there's always going to be a hardcore of people who can't find work or won't find work within an economy. This can then lead to higher inflation on wages, because if people have a choice of jobs, they tend to go to the one that suits them best, and employers often have to offer extra inducements to get staff to fill positions they need filling. This in turn increases inflation. More that employers have more spending power, they tend to drive up the prices of goods and services in the wider economy. And consumer spending therefore is also increased. Conversely, in a recession, unemployment tends to rise as businesses struggle to continue to make their profits, and they tend to let employees go. Some businesses close down altogether. We also tend to find stable levels of inflation, and tends to be fairly low inflation, because the demand in the economy is not driving prices up, so inflation stays stable. Or even more disastrously, you can have deflation where prices are decreasing overall, and driving prices down. That's more symptomatic of a severe recession. Typically in a recession, consumer spending decreases as people don't feel as confident about spending the money that they're earning, and start to save money in case they lose their position or lose their employment and still need to pay mortgages or put children through school. These periods of boom and recession are what economists call the economic cycle. They're typically, the economy goes through a period where things start to increase. We get into a boom period, which then peaks and starts to turn back down again as either inflation takes hold and has a negative impact on the economy, or some other unforeseen factor such as the global economy starts to drive the economy down. Australia at the moment is in the middle of a downturn period, as most of the other Western economies that we trade with are in recession, and our main trading partner, China, is experiencing less growth and less demand for our exports than they have been. So this has led to the end of one of the longest booms we've seen in Australian economic history, and the start of a slight downturn. That can't be classified as being in a recession yet, but this perhaps is only a matter of time, and certainly Australia is overdue having a recession. All this economic news plays or has an impact on business decisions. Employers now are probably less likely to be wanting to employ people if they are fearing that the economy is heading down into a recession period. At this stage, I'd like you to complete the snapshot activities on the global financial crisis and the survival of the fittest in section 3.3 of the textbook.